I was on tour in Asia, and I decided to go. I went to a wedding on my last leg. So you have to understand, I was going from New York to LA, and then I had like a 12-hour layover in LA because the plane broke down. And then I flew from LA to Thailand to Seoul to Shanghai to Singapore. And when I got to Singapore, I went to a wedding. And at the wedding, someone was like, have you ever been to Angkor Wat? And I was like, I'd never heard of it. And they're like, it's one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it's very close to here, and you should just stop there on your way since you're in Asia. And remember, again, back then travel wasn't as accessible as it is now, right? And so because my personality is very like do whatever, I'm not like I'll just like be like, oh, very spontaneous. And so I was like, oh, so I'll just change all my flights and I'll just go to Cambodia for like a few days. So, why not, right? So I switched all my flights. I flew to Cambodia, and I went to Angkor Wat. It was truly one of the most like incredible experiences. I couldn't believe like how beautiful it was and how intense it was. And so I decided to stay an extra night in that resort in Siem Reap. And even though I had a plane ticket to go to the beach town, this was 2006, I think, the beach town, it's like a 45-minute plane ride on the coast. Because I'm so spontaneous, I was like, I want to go to Angkor Wat again. So I'm just going to cancel my $40 ticket, however much it cost. So I went to Angkor Wat, stayed in the hotel. They gave me an enormous suite, because it was off season. So they're like, you can just stay here for the same price. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to stay. I'm not going to go to the beach. That plane crashed and everyone died. I still have my paper ticket.
What?
Yeah, we had paper tickets back then. So me and my ex-boyfriend, who was with me at the time, we're watching the news and we're like, isn't that our flight? Like, they couldn't find the plane for 3 days. It crashed in a jungle. It was horrible. Everybody died. I think it was over 200 people. And after that, I decided to rent a bike, like one of those like Cambodian like rental bikes for like $1. I rented it. I just like explored around Cambodia. I was like really like, oh my God, like I could be dead right now, right? And then when I was doing my exploration down the beaten path, I saw some like very precarious looking situations, which were like suburban looking homes in like the very poor Pol Pot, like Pol Pot, I think had been removed from power in 79 or 80. So they were still recovering from that genocide. And it's very poor, a lot of the country. And so when I saw these like weird suburban houses, I was like, they really stood out. And then like, there were like little girls outside, and then there were like sketchy old guys coming in and out, like a lot. And so I thought, what is going on here? So I went back to my hotel room and I Googled, children brothel Cambodia. Like, I don't even remember what it was. Like, I didn't even Google trafficking because I didn't even think of that. And that's when I learned about human trafficking. And I was like, oh my God, I consider myself educated. Well, I consider myself well-traveled, culturally aware. I watch the news, I read. How do I not know about this? And so like when I went back to the United States, I like made it a mission to build awareness on human trafficking. And that was like, around when Twitter was starting and like before Twitter. And then now it's, become such a big campaign for people. And so now I'm really focusing on prevention through music education, which is how I ended up working with the UN on prevention tools.
Okay. That trip and that story, so many questions. You've blown my mind. Okay. I'm going to try to like remember all the questions. Okay. How do you come back to the States and move on with life knowing that you could have been dead? Like, that blows my mind, girl, that you actually, one decision changed everything. Like, it's got to have affected you now.
I think that's how it was so like real. Like when I rented that bike, like it was just like, I felt like I felt like I saw things differently. Do you know, like when you're that young and you're just cavalier about life and you're not, like you're just like, I'm a superhero. You start to really appreciate things and look at things differently. And I think that having experienced that almost death situation was really just like changed the whole way that I view my relationship with not just music, but with everything and with life in general. So, it was pretty intense. Yeah, I came back to America and I was like, I have to do something bigger than what I'm doing now. Like, I have to be less selfish, because like there's other stuff going on. And like, I would have hated to die so young and not have, like been like a good part of society and done something, like contributed.
Wow. That's That is just an insane story. So thank you for sharing that, because like I can only imagine how scary it must have been to see that on the news and just
Like,
have this sense of one decision.
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, that's such a crazy story.